Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is a long one. It's featuring lots of products from Hero Arts, the beautiful butterflies, friendly messages, tulip bouquet, what is the other one? I showed you the peonies, but I didn't use them, the bunch of balloons, and the wild columbine. Why are there so many examples? Because I wanted to show you that you can do this technique with literally any style of stamp. And so I just picked a bunch of random ones that I really loved. The butterflies, the florals, the balloons. These are all stamps that I have used in the past for other cards. And so, I mean, they're just ones that I knew I was already kind of drawn to. So first things first, you're going to stamp these multiple times. I'm stamping, this one is going to be my card background, so this one will be the one we actually turn into a card, and then I'm going to stamp them again for the layering portion, and I did this with each one of them, but I'm going to spare you the individual stamping of each stamp. I am using Intense Black ink from Hero Arts. This is like my go-to because I use Copic markers so much. So I'm stamping those down. Not all of these will be colored with Copic markers. The butterflies and the balloons are, but the florals are done with stencils. So whatever your coloring medium is, this will work. You could, I mean, obviously use colored pencils, watercolor, whatever you like, it will work. Oh, before we get much farther, I have a discount code. I do. I have 10% off of Hero Arts. They generously gave us a discount code. It's only good through June 30th, though. I'm sorry I'm bringing it to the table so late. It's just been kind of a week. But it's Kelly10. I will link it below. You can use it for stamps, but if not stamps, inks, paper, like the friendly messages is a really good bundle because it comes with the stamps and the dies and you can use it for anything. It's got congrats, happy birthday, just all kinds of stuff that if you would normally use that you can now stock up on 10% off. So I will link that below. It's good through June 30th. I did all of the backgrounds with the Hero Arts reactive inks in a variety of colors. You'll notice I'm not doing any masking. I'm not worried about it because I know I'm going to be layering over top of it. But if you were concerned about it, you certainly could do some masking. I chose not to. So the reason I chose the reactive inks is because they do react with water. And so while I did a kind of like a soft ink blended background for all of them, I also, you'll see here in a minute, I spattered on some clean water, and that's why I chose the reactive inks, because it reacts with water. Kind of self-explanatory, right? And then I also used Perfect Pearls, because I do love a shimmer spatter in the background, but you can do whatever you want with your backgrounds. The technique for the layering of the stamps won't change. How did I get this idea? How did we get here to this long, very long video? I had done a card like this similarly quite a few years ago and really loved the way that it came out. And I just never kind of came back to it. And so I thought that it would be a fun one to kind of revisit. Here is the splattering of the clean water, and then I'm going to add water to my Perfect Pearls in my little dish here. Perfect Pearls adhere with water. That's why typically when you use them, you have to mist the paper. But by mixing them with the water, they then become a spatter, and then once they're dry, they'll stay exactly where you put them. So whether you include the shimmer or the spatters or not, like I said, the background doesn't really matter, but I do have to show you. I don't have to. I guess that's true. And I am going to speed up the ink blending. But I have a really hard time just leaving things out of videos. I've told you guys this in the past if you've ever watched my channel before, because somebody somewhere will be like, oh, I love this color combination, but you didn't show how you made it. Or I loved this part of it, and that's the part I really wanted to see, and it wasn't included in the video. So I would rather have a slightly longer video with all of the necessary parts included in it than cut something out and have somebody watch this video and not even get to see the part that they liked, the part that they were looking for. So, so we discussed the discount code, which I think is amazing. Super generous of them. And then we discussed the ink blended backgrounds. I have mentioned this in another video. If you struggle with blending inks together, I would highly recommend looking into the blending brushes. It does put down a lighter ink, lighter application of ink, which makes them substantially easier to blend. That's why they work so nicely. So if you've never used blending brushes before, I would encourage you to give those a try if you struggle with ink blending. Okay, yeah, that's that. So, what's been happening life-wise? I guess not really. I have been, this is kind of funny. I was talking to my friend Dawn today about this, and maybe this is maybe it's not even something you guys notice. I will be interested to see if it is, but we've been having a lot of discussion lately, and we do pretty frequently about naming our videos, like what to name them. You would not believe how incredibly difficult it is to come up with a name of a video. Because you don't want to be like redundant, and you don't, sometimes you're like, I just made a pretty card, there isn't really a great technique in here. And so coming up with names for them can be very, very challenging. So I would be interested to know, do you notice the titles of videos, or do you just look at the picture and click on it? Or do you just know, like in my case, if you're a follower of mine, like, oh, that's a Kelly card, I'm gonna watch that video. Am I spending a lot of needless time on these titles for nobody to even notice them? Because that would be some irony, right? So we've been talking a lot about that. I wonder sometimes with like the algorithms and social media and stuff, how much, like, we as creators, how much it even matters, or are we just, subjected to whatever the algorithm is and it is what it is. I would be very interested to know, and I don't think there's really ever any way to kind of tell that. You know what I'm saying? For this balloon one, I went with a teal, green, and yellow. I skipped that part entirely because now you've seen it 3 different times. This is me doing my little spatterings to finish that card off. And then we're going to move on to the stenciling. For that, I am using the stamp wheel from Altenew. I love the sticky mat to hold my stencils. I think I know you can actually just buy the sticky mat itself now without having to get the platform, which definitely cuts down on the cost. But if you are a person who likes the stencils, I would highly recommend that. That is a fantastic little tool for holding the stencils. So for this one, I did switch over to some of the hero hues, and honestly, if I had to do this tulip one over again, I would have started with a lighter color and then moved to my darkers, but I didn't. I started with a darker and then moved to my lighters. You still can see it because it's more of a yellow, but that was kind of like a faux pas on my part. I should have started lighter and then went in with a darker color, but that's okay. I still think the card turned out super cute. I did a card, what did I do? This was a while ago, maybe 2 years ago. I used this tulip bouquet and did like 3 different cards for this one. I just think it's just such a good set. But anyway, I started with yellow and then added a little bit of pink towards the base. And then I'm also going to use the pink for my detail layer to just add some added detail. This obviously is going to be the piece that we use for the technique. This is not, my background piece, but I did do the stenciling on both the background and the technique piece, just so that everything would match up really nicely. The same thing for the columbines here. I think when I did these before, I did them in blue and I opted for like a pinkish purple this time around because that was kind of the vibe the background was giving me. One thing to note with this particular stencil, it is made so that the lightest part of the centers actually don't have any color added to them. They will stay white. I didn't want mine to stay white. I wanted them to have a little bit of color to them. And so I chose to go in with a, a VO1 Copic marker and just kind of glaze over those. It's a very light purple and it matches really nicely. For the leaves, I added like a blue-green because that was the thing I had going on in the background. But then for the detail layer, I went in with a yellow and a green. You would think that you wouldn't be able to see it because, again, it's a lighter color over a darker, but you can. Here's me filling in that VO1 I was telling you about, and I'm just using that to also fill in any of the highlight areas on the flowers. This is me showing you yet again. I probably could have cut this out, honestly. But just that I'm going back in with the same, this time I did start lighter. This time I knew to start lighter. And then went in with the detail with a darker green. And this is going to be the actual card piece that we use. But because we are going to be layering stamps on top of each other, I just wanted to make sure that no matter what angle you looked at it from, you could still see all of the coloring. So if this obviously would not take very long if you were just doing one card, but because I'm doing 4 cards, it did take me a little bit more time to kind of get everything together. But at the end of the day, I ended up with 4 cards that I really liked. Now we're going to move on to the Copic coloring for the balloons. For the balloons on the left-hand side, this is my actual card front. And then you'll see that I don't bother to color the ones I'm going to be layering. How did I pick the ones I was going to be layering? They are the ones that you can see all of. So if they are in the forefront and you can see all of the balloon itself, the star, the heart, the balloon at the very tip top, the one in the bottom right and the one in the bottom left, then those are the ones that I'm going to be layering on top of my initial image, like the actual card front. And that's going to, there was no point in coloring them twice. I did just to make sure that you would be able to, again, if you look at it from the side, see any color, from all angles. I did add an outline to those as well. And you'll see that at the very end. So I just picked some of the same colors that you see in, throughout all of the cards. Because again, I photographed them all together. So I want them to look nice together. That would not be something that you would have to worry about if you were just creating one card. But again, here we go back to that, social media algorithm. Things should look pretty together, blah, 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 blah. Plus, I just personally have a thing with that. Like, I don't know why. I like when things are matchy. It just, I don't know. It makes me happy, I guess. But so the ones that I will be using for the technique are on the right and then the actual card front on the left. For the balloons, all of the coloring is pretty much the same, adding some shading to the base, kind of up the left and right hand sides, and then blending that out. Here's me outlining the ones that I will be layering on top, just to make sure that, like I said before, how many times have I said that? So, when you look at it, you won't be able to see the color underneath. For the butterflies, I don't even think I'm going to show you all of the coloring for the butterflies. I can't remember if I do or I don't, quite honestly. It was all the same. So just super quick shading. I did my darker colors typically more toward the center of the body. And then did my lighter colors, out towards the middle. For this one, I did blend in some purples and some blues. For the middle butterfly, I did some pinks and some purples. And then for the top butterfly, I just did it blue. Blue, if you've been here before, blue is my boyfriend and it is my favorite. So any excuse to sneak more blue into a card, I am going to take it for sure. So these beautiful butterflies have been on the market, I think, since the spring catalog. I love them. I love any kind of butterflies. I don't know. I just feel like they're super neutral kind of image. Maybe that's just me. And I didn't do a color blend for the purple. I actually just went in and added some detail to the butterfly wings with the purple marker just to give them some kind of different markings. And the one on the left you could totally use as a 1-layer card, but I wanted to show how you can create dimension by layering stamps with any kind of stamp. And it gives a really cool look and lots of fun dimension that you would typically see from like a layering kind of die, those style, but you're getting it from your stamped images. And so these are probably things that you already have. For the bodies, I am coloring them in a black and a dark gray. So I'm adding my darkest shading with the black and then blending that out with the darker gray. It is very, very difficult on camera to see that there's any difference between the two colors, but there are. So for the florals, I have 3 of these. For the other 2, I have 2. And we're going to start with the easiest one. So how are we going to layer these up? Real simple. We're going to fussy cut them. That's not going to be for everybody, and I totally understand that, but it is another way that you can layer your stamps and get a different look from them, get more interest, more dimension, without having to buy anything extra, with just a stamp set. So with fussy cutting, I am right hand dominant. So I hold my scissors in my right hand and then I move my image with my left hand. And this is going to give me a much smoother cut. So the scissors always stay straight up and down. And then the image moves with my left hand. Then once I have those cut out, and I'll show you another example. I'm not going to show you the fussy cutting of all of these because, again, I made 4 cards. So can it be a little bit time consuming? Absolutely. For one card, not so much. For one card, it was pretty fast. And it also depends on how much layering you choose to do. This image easily could have been layered 3 times. I chose to only do 1 layer. So you have your flat stamped image and then you'll have these layered on top. The other thing that I do to give my fussy cutting a more finished look is I have a Memento Tuxedo black marker. This is a water-based marker. You don't want to use an alcohol-based marker because it'll bleed into your coloring. So I'm just going around. I hold them so that the back is facing me. So that way, in case my marker slips, I'm sliding down the back of my image and not the front of my image. And then I'm just going to go around the edges and it's just going to give it a nice finished look. This only works if you stamped in black ink though. If you stamped in a lighter color ink, then you'll probably want to try to find a water-based marker that is similar to that color. But because I stamped in black, I'm outlining them in black. Then once I have them all down, I am going to pop mine up on foam for this card, but you don't have to. You could just glue them down flat and it would still give you more dimension and the look of a layered stamp without the foam tape. But I chose to add some foam tape to mine just because this card is relatively simple. Here, I'm just trimming off a little corner. And then once I have the foam where I want it, I'll just peel off the backer and then I will press them in place and I'll end up with a multi-dimensional stamped image that I didn't previously have before. And it just gives it a different look and makes it more interesting. You know what I'm saying? Just gives it a little added extra oomph. So once I get all these in place, then I will move on to the next one. I built all of my cards kind of like assembly line style. So all of them I did all of the fussy cutting and then the building, fussy cut and then the building, and all of the things that went with the fussy cutting. So here you can see how they're kind of stacked up on top of each other. For the butterfly, we're going to switch it up a little bit. So you could absolutely just cut out the wings and lay them down the way that they are in one piece. I'm going to cut mine in half. So I'm actually going to have 3 layers. The body is flat against the card front. Then I'm going to cut apart all of my wings. I'm going to go in, and even though we're cutting apart the wings, we're still going to do all of the edges in that black outline to finish them off. That has not changed. So no matter how much you whittle your image down, you want to make sure that you're still doing that black outline on all of the edges so you don't see any white edges when you're putting it together, or it will be noticeable and it won't look fluid and seamless. So going through and doing that, and then for this one, The bottom wings, I am going to just adhere flat. So now I have my card base, I have the first wing that's going to be down, and look, I'm trying to glue it to the wrong side. Oopsie, but I found it. I figured it out, y'all. Don't worry about me. So then I'll have this layer of cardstock on top, and then the top wings I'm going to pop up on foam. So I actually end up with 3 layers. You could really play around with this and decide how many layers you want to have. But they all, like I said, because we fussy cut them, they all line up. We did the black outline, so they're all going to blend in seamlessly, and they're super fun. So for all of the bottoms are all adhered flat with, what am I using? Hero Arts Precision Glue. And then I'm going to pop up each one of the top wings with just little bits of foam tape. Alternatively, you could stamp a bunch of these, cut them out, and then stack them on top of each other. But that just didn't seem like a good use of my time, honestly, when I could just use foam tape. So that is what you see me doing here. Just going through and making sure that they're all going to be, stable and secure, and you're not going to be able to see any of that foam tape. So yeah, I just think this is one of those techniques that, because we're in a generation of, all these dyes and foiling and all that stuff, and don't get me wrong, I totally love all of that stuff. I think it is super fun. But sometimes especially when you're a beginning card maker, it's good to go back and revisit these other types of techniques that you can do without anything extra. You just need a stamp, a pair of scissors, and a marker to make this happen, and still get really great results with lots of dimension, because we're all in different places, and I've said that before. I have access now, after 10 years of card making, to a lot of different things than I had when I first started. But I remember what it was like to be a card maker who had just started. So for this one, I've cut them all out. The leaves are going to be my base. I trimmed those off when I cut out the other 3 flowers, and I outlined everything in black. Now this is going to go down. This is just the flowers. I've cut the leaves off. When I did my fussy cutting, I cut the leaves off. So now I'm going to put just the flowers down. So the leaves are flat. These flowers act as my second layer. And then the center of the flowers are going to be the parts that I pop up on that foam tape. And then again, we have that 3-layer look, which, just gives us, more interest, more dimension, more all of the things. Takes that design just up to the next level. And if you're at a point in your journey, maybe you're on a fixed income, maybe you're really new to card making and you don't have a lot of supplies, and all of those things, this is something that you can do with literally any stamp set that you own, literally any one of them. As long as you so even like regular florals, here you can see we've got all that fun dimension. And so for the tulips, I'm going to switch it up even further. I'm going to cut apart some of my leaves and do them as my second layer. So they're just going to fit right into those areas. And I did go back over them, with the black outline. So that way everything fit in nicely. But so now I'm going to have a base layer leaf. I'm going to have a secondary layer of leaves that are glued flat to the cardstock. And then the same thing with the flowers. I'm going to have one set that is popped up and one that is glued directly to the florals. So if you have any kind of floral that you like, here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to cut out 1 or 2 petals. Again, just like when we talked about with the balloons, you want the one that's on the top, the one that you can see all of. That will be what you want to trim out. So for here, there were 2 that were on the same level. I trimmed those out. This one has 1 large one right in the center. I'm going to trim that out. And I know that the pieces are getting smaller, but I still outlined them in the black because I wanted to make sure that they would just blend in seamlessly. And these would still be pretty even if we only did the popped up flower. But I just wanted to show you there was even a way to take it even a step further. Just like those layering dies that we know and love, you see all those different layers. And it's the same thing here, is when you look at the card, it's hard to tell in the photo, but in real life, like, you can see those individual layers, and it just adds a little something. So here, just putting down my glue, gluing then down my petals on top of that. So I have a flat base flower, and then I have 2 dimensional petals that will sit on top of it. And I'm just going through. These were actually really pretty easy to line up. When I was first cutting them out, I was like, how will I know which one goes with which one? But honestly, I didn't really have a hard time figuring out which one went with which one. with which one. So yeah. So anyway, back to what I was saying is, like, we're all at different places, and we all have different things going on as far as what we can use or what we have or what we even have room for. I've seen several crafters, posting in different groups about how they don't have a designated craft area and they have to clean up their things every night. And so I just think that as we progress in card making, which I'm very grateful for, I love all of the new things that are on the market, and I think that they're really very fun and different to play with. That doesn't mean that the techniques that we used to use don't still have a place in card making, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So for the sentiments, I white heat embossed all of them on pitch black cardstock, and then I'm using the dies to cut them out. I just chose a couple that I really, I thought that would actually be, I would use. For this one, the Have a Fabulous Day, I cut out 2 more die cuts out of white so I could stack them up, and that they would kind of mirror the height of the tulips. Because remember, we have, 3-4 layers going on this particular card. So I just stacked them up so that it would, be a little bit more weighty. And then I'm just going to put that right over the stems. It was hard for me to pick a favorite, but I think this tulip one might be it. I don't know. I think it's the color combo. I'm not really sure. I love this one. I think it's very pretty. I like them all, honestly. I just do. They're just good sets. But anywho, so here's a tip for this one. I trimmed it down, and then I didn't like it. I trimmed it down, and I was like, oh, I should have left the background exactly how it was, but I didn't. So how do you fix that? Just create the same background again, and then pop one up over the other. It will give you the same kind of seamless look as if the background is continued, and nobody will be aware that you didn't cut it off completely on purpose or that you had any regrets about it. So these, again, I did the background exactly the same, and now I'm just going to pop this one on top. The foam tape I used here is actually from Picket Fence, and it is a thicker one, but I like it for large panels. This one I struggled with a bit because I felt like it was a little bit empty, and I think that's why I trimmed it down to begin with. But we're going to add some gemstones here in a little bit, and that's really going to kind of bring it around. So this one says, "You're the best." Again, just really general, sentiments that you could send, anytime. And so I did scoot it over a little bit to get more of a balance. And then for this one, the top left really needed a stacked sentiment to fill in that space. And so I just trimmed them apart. I cut them in half, and then I just trimmed around the edges to make sure that I maintained that black edge, glued it in place, popped it up on foam. This one is over the Bermuda cardstock, which I totally love. I mean, it's such a beautiful teal color. And then I'm just going to put this on in the center. I think it makes the leaves pop. I don't know. There's just something about this teal color and that purple that is just, that's an it for me. For this one, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I'm using that same Bermuda cardstock, but I'm just using 2 little strips. I thought that I would try black, and I did, but I didn't love it. So I've just taped my piece in place so that I can put 2 really thin stripes of teal down the side, and then I am going to pop up the center portion. This just kind of frames it in nicely and is a different design than just the same old, same old. I trimmed it down 1/4 of an inch, like I do most of my cards. I do a lot of my cards like that. Not going to deny it. Probably because it's like a tried and true, looks nice, gives you a nice little mat. I mean, matting's been, you want to talk about old school techniques. Matting things has been around since I was a scrapbooker, and I've been doing that since 1999, maybe 2000. Since I was in high school. So this one was popped up. I chose to just to accent all of the cards with some rhinestones. These particular rhinestones are from Crafty Meraki, and they are, what are they? Let me snatch them. You'll probably hear them jingle. They are the Sparkle Magic Iris, but they're just like a kind of like an Aurora Borealis kind of look. I did go in and add some white gel pen details to my butterflies, and then the balloons as well. I don't think I added any to the flowers because honestly with those layering stencils you really don't need it. I did add some shimmer to those though, because I love me some shimmer. And then that's it. That's all 4 cards. So I would be interested to know if you would try this, if you've done this in the past and are happy to see it come back around, or if you're like, nah, too much work, not for me. I'm interested to see that. Don't forget that coupon code down below. Grab that if you're going to be doing any shopping. It's good through the 30th. Thank you guys so much for your time. I always appreciate you, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.